But we just found out that my wife has COVID. So I'm still clear to keep going about daily life, but makes living in the same apartment a little difficult. Definitely throws a wrench in this 15-day writing challenge, but I'm still going strong. Today I wrote about 5,000 words, and I've got nothing else to do being secluded here in the studio office, so I'm just gonna keep writing into the night. And yeah, so a little bit of a wrench in the plans, but hey, the next few days I have no excuse but to write. So let's get to it. My wife Layla is okay. She has a headache and some nasal congestion and bad sneezing, just sneezing all the time. We didn't know that was part of COVID. It may not be, it may just be allergies, but she has been sneezing like a storm. Like I said, I haven't gotten it, and I don't know if I will or not, but if I do, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So my apologies today if this is a short video. We kind of had a bit of a curveball thrown to us today, so I'm still writing, I'm still hitting my quota that I set for myself, so I'm not too concerned about that aspect of it. You know, now I just have more time to write, but I definitely haven't had time today to really think about what I'm going to film or adding anything funny at the beginning of the video. So there may or may not be anything in there, and I apologize for that. So I would much rather not have to quarantine from my wife for the next few days, possibly 3 to 4 days. But that is how it is. We're being cautious, but not overly cautious. I've been around her already up to this point, and she's had allergy symptoms for the last couple of days, so we're not quite sure whether or not that was due to the COVID or just allergies. But if I have to quarantine, this is not that bad of a place to quarantine. I have everything I need to write, and at least I have something to keep me focused every day. And I slacked off earlier last week, so now it's kind of like hit the ground running. I have no excuse but to write. So I want to talk a little bit about where I'm at in the story and the challenges that I'm facing today and the last few days. I'm reaching a point where the main character is really facing a lot of the big plot main issues that are running through the book. Up to this point, it's been a lot of backstory, it's been a lot of leading up to some of these larger sections, of meatier sections of the plot. So I would say if you're looking at that plot curve, you're looking at that rising action, and then now we're kind of in that middle curve where it comes down and goes out. We're in that middle curve now where the main character is really facing like issue after issue. Things are moving a lot faster. So we're getting up to that point over the climax, a really exciting part of the story. So currently the main character Arlen is in the Underroot, and the Underroot is a place beneath the forest floor in the caverns and tunnels that exist there. It's called the Underroot because, well, it's under the roots of all the trees in the forest. 90% of the world is covered in thick forest, so naturally you're going to call it the Underroot. I thought that was a pretty simple but pretty clever name that I came up with, instead of calling it something like, you know, different places or different games and different genres call it different things. In D&D it's called the Underdark. That's a little on the nose, but it's also kind of a similar name to Underroot. So I sort of played off of that and I stole elements of it. But then you play games, like I'm a Minecraft nerd, so I've been playing it since it came out, so they call it the Deep Dark. And so it's just like the really simple names that sound really good. It's like my concept for replacing the name of goblins. You know, I call them the Fell because they were elves that literally fell. They fell out of grace with the creator of the world, and therefore got twisted and turned into these creatures, these monstrosities. I did something similar with the dwarves. So in this section of the story, the main character encounters your stereotypical dwarves. But like I said in the last couple of days, I didn't want to just give them the name dwarf and have everyone just make those preconceived notions about what dwarves are and who, like, what they do, and, you know, they mine stone and they, you know, like gold, and that's pretty much all that dwarves are. Well, The dwarves in my book, I call them underlings. And so the underlings are very much your stereotypical, like, mining race. They live underground, they mine stone, they mine precious metals, they mine gems and things of that nature. I would say that the main difference between mainstream dwarves of like D&D and Tolkien and other genres and the dwarves in my book, the Forest Guardians, is that the underlings are just as concerned about nature and the forest as everyone on the surface is. So everyone on the surface is all about, or most people on the surface, besides like the Fel and some other races, are very concerned about the balance of the forest and living in harmony with nature. Well, the underlings are also concerned about it, and that's where we get into the idea of the underroot. So the underroot, I gave it that name because the roots of the trees, the elder trees in the world, they literally delve deep into the ground and through the stone. And so you could be a mile underground in a underling city, and you could see a massive root structure coming out of the cavern ceiling and stretching across this mile-long span of cavern. And so you get this image of the underlings who are mining these tunnels through the stone, and they come across these roots. Well, what do? They don't just cut through the roots and keep going. They respect and revere the roots and make sure that they're well taken care of. Because if they start cutting roots and tunneling through them, that's going to kill the trees on the surface. And so it's this idea of maintaining balance through not only like the tree top surface canopy, but also maintaining that balance underground where the roots are, because that's a huge part of the tree. And so you almost get this like sacred protection of the roots underground. And so the underlings are like, that is their main focus, is to make sure that the trees are well taken care of. And one thing I did is that if they come across these roots deep underground, they will actually leave whatever ores and minerals and stone around the roots so that the tree can get those minerals and nutrients that they need from those natural elements. And so it kind of steers away from that stereotypical dwarf mindset of like needing all the gold and just mining out an entire mountain and taking everything for themselves. Now, with that being said, the underlings are still all about their precious metals, gems, and everything else of that nature, largely because they live underground and they are largely a mining race. They like to tunnel, so naturally they're going to harvest those things. So whatever the surface dwellers might trade for, well, you got to think about what is the context underground. What do they have access to? What do they not have access to? So when you start to think about the world building aspect and the limitations that you place on yourself to problem solve in the moment, one of the things that I was thinking about was the access to food. Well, if you're deep underground in a cavern, you're not going to have access to that much food, unless there are giant forests of towering mushrooms that are just dotted throughout the caverns. And so we have this juxtaposition of these fungal forests that are just found in like mile-long stretches in these caverns. And that is how a lot of the underlings get their food, through mushrooms and different types of funguses and lichens of that nature. So where I'm at in the story now, I actually just crossed over page 50, and each page on average is about 363 words, so that's added quite a bit onto my word count. But there have been some pages where the story just makes sense for the illustrations that I have in my head and the layout that I'm thinking, for one page to have 600 words and the next to have 300, and then go a few pages without much text at all. But on average, we're looking at about 365 words per page. So I just have to talk about something real quick. I just wrote a page in the book where Arlen, the main character, and Eliezer, his little child companion, which looking back on it, probably shouldn't have made him a child, but makes things more interesting. I just came across in the book that I wrote where they are in the underroot, walking through a fungal forest, and they happen upon a giant spider. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely hate spiders. Well, Seth, why would you write a giant spider into your book? Because I absolutely am terrified of them, and it makes for a good story. My favorite part of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are the parts where they have encounters with giant spiders. I don't know why, it's a phobia of mine. I'm terrified of them. I will not kill one if it's in the shower. I will make Layla come in and kill it for me. But contrary to that, I love to draw them, I love to illustrate them, I love to tell stories with them in it, because it's just like, for me, it's the quintessential monster, because it is just so evil and just twisted that there is no qualms in my mind about characters or images of dead spiders. Some people may come at me for that. That's fine. Spider lives don't matter. So you may say, Seth, without spiders, we would have so many mosquitoes, bugs, insects, and everything else running around. Well, I would much rather have all those other insects and bugs than spiders. And it's not even that I'm an arachnophobe. I don't care about scorpions. I'd let a scorpion crawl up my arm. It's spiders specifically. I don't know if it's a genre thing. I don't know if I saw Lord of the Rings when I was little and it just scarred me for life when I saw Shelob come out of that cave. I have no idea, but I am just massively terrified of spiders. So naturally, I'm going to write them into a book and make them the most evil and vile creature that I can. So I officially just hit page 50. I'm about to write it, but that means that I am over a third of the way through the book. Now, I haven't been editing as I'm going, so I'm a third of the way through the manuscript, the initial first draft of the manuscript. And that's what this 15-day challenge is all about. I know that I'm not going to get a fully edited and publisher-ready book by the time the 15 days are over, because other people have to look at it. I have to get their input, because if I just wrote a book and tried to publish it as it was, no one would buy it, because it would be barely legible and understandable grammatically. So, I mean, you hear the way I talk, and it would not be a good deal if I just went ahead and published this myself. So once we are COVID-free in the apartment, I'm going to schedule a meeting with an editor and with an author so that I can get someone else's input, and I can see what it's going to cost me to get this thing professionally edited and pared down to something that is readable. But we're getting down to it. This is day 10, so after today, I'm going to have 5 more days to write this book. So I have about 93 to 94 pages left to write over 5 days. And really, I want to get them done in the next 4 days so that I can make sure to read through it once and make all the edits to the plot and everything that I want to on the last day. Which means that I have to write 90 divided by 4 is going to be a lot. Let's say 20 something. Yeah, 20 something, because math is hard when you're tired. It's dark outside, it's late, so let's do the math. I have a calculator and the magic of editing. So in 3, 2, 1, you will have the answer, which means I was pretty close. 23.25 pages per day, which equals, magic of editing, about 7,000 words a day. So it's gonna be a lot, but I have literally nothing else to do. I still feel fine, so I'm still gonna work from home, but I will definitely have a lot of time to edit because we're not going anywhere in the evenings, so that's fun. So to recap, COVID, deadlines, 5 more days, really 4 more days, roughly 7,000 words a day. Can I do it? Who knows? Stay tuned. But seriously, thank you everyone for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe. Make sure you like the video and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of future videos. If you haven't checked out my Patreon already, I encourage you to do so, especially as we get farther along into the process of illustrating this book. There are going to be a lot of extra things over there that I'm going to post and update as I go. And anybody on the Patreon is going to get first access to the book and the Kickstarter once we publish that. So if you want to be on that list, make sure that you are on my Patreon and you will have access to that before anybody else does. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow.